My name is Summer, and today we're going to discuss how can neural networks inform our understanding of the brain. I think up until now, we saw many examples. How can we use different machine learning models and even neural networks to solve kind of different problems in different fields, like sustainability, healthcare, etc. And at the end of the day, because we focused more on like a supervised learning in this course, we saw a lot of problems related to classification, right? Where our models were able to kind of take the input and classify it with a much better accuracy than humans, or much faster rates, and with much higher efficiency. However, when we combine the topic or neural networks with neuroscience, the use of it is a bit different. And that's why I wanted to kind of present about this topic. Again, when we combine machine learning with different fields, machine learning is used as a tool, right? As a tool to give us a better result. However, in neuroscience, what we actually do, we actually are interested in the neural networks themselves. We're actually interested in their structure, how they're working, and how that can actually inform us and help us understand our brain. So a bit of a background on neuroscience. So actually, wait, let me move my screen a bit. Okay, perfect. I hope you see everything. Yeah. So by the end of the 18th century, we actually almost knew nothing about the brain, and even the few things that we knew were kind of speculations and barely. What we did is like we saw patients that had like certain disabilities, and then we dissected their brains after they died. So the access we had and the tools we had were very limited. Only in the 19th century, and more specifically when we kind of invented the PET scan, where we actually started to kind of get more and more information about neuroscience. And the reason that I'm saying this, I want you to understand how complicated it is to solve problems related to our brain. And to be completely honest, what we don't know about the brain is much more than what we currently know. We consider the topic of neuroscience to be like an extremely young field. So if you like hard challenges and like uncharted waters, then welcome. Something else that adds like another layer of complexity, like with the brain and studying the brain, is the many layers of analysis we have. In all of our other like body systems, we do have like the molecular and cellular and like systems a level. But with the brain, we also have the behavioral aspect, and we have the cognitive aspect. Okay. Today, we're actually going to discuss how we're going to use those neural networks to solve problems related to cognition, to cognitive neuroscience. So can you maybe send in the chat if you know what cognitive neuroscience is about? Yeah, so cognitive neuroscience is a subfield of neuroscience, and it's actually about studying or trying to uncover the neural mechanisms behind kind of what we consider higher levels of human mental activity. And okay, let me check the chat really quickly. Studying neural connections involved with mental processes. Yeah, but the mental processes related to kind of higher level of human mental activity. So what we mean by this is what computations are being done in the brain that enables the mind. And what we mean by mind is language, imagination, etc. So, we all already having a really pretty rough start, kind of dealing with problems and answering questions within cognitive neuroscience. Okay, it's considered definitely the greatest challenge of the field, and because at the end of the day, understanding the mind is understanding what makes us unique as humans, and this is kind of the greatest question in kind of the quest of intelligence. Yeah, so the problem of perception was definitely one of the main researches that we had in the topic of cognitive neuroscience, right? So how do we perceive this world around us, right? And then how do we assign meaning to it, right? And I hope that these questions sound familiar to you, because we actually asked them, right? When we were talking about natural language processing, we were talking about computer vision, we were asking them about our machine learning model. We were asking, how is our model going to be able to assign meaning to language? How is it going to be assigning meaning to images? We asked those questions about the brain a long time ago. So I hope that you're starting seeing like the similarities here. So, one of the, what we actually wanted to discover is how humans can detect objects. How can humans detect faces, right? So we can see here that, we have three very different angles of the face, almost different facial expressions, but instantly every and each one of us here recognize that this is the same face, right? This is pretty incredible. How is this happening? How is this computation happening? Oops, sorry. Same with speech, right? Same with natural language. So all these problems are under the umbrella of perception. So this is a really famous quote by someone called David Marr. He is one of the pioneers of modern neuroscience, and also one of the people that started the field of computational neuroscience. And what he said basically, so I'm just going to read it quickly. The nature of computation that underlie perception depends more upon the computational problem than the hardware. And if you're not exactly understanding what this means, it's okay. So what we're saying here, that all these problems that we're discussing under the umbrella of perception are in their core a computational problem. And in each one of them, there's kind of underlying sub-computational problems. And whatever model is able to kind of reach a certain accuracy in solving it, right? In recognizing faces, recognizing objects, whatever, it's actually gonna follow a similar process, okay? So what this means is that it doesn't really depend whether the system that is doing the facial recognition is a brain or a mathematical model. They're supposed to follow a similar process. And this really started this era in computational neuroscience, where we started to trying to model things that actually did these really hard problems, right? Solve these problems. And yeah, it was definitely difficult, and we were mainly failing, because the idea again was, once we find a model that is able to compute almost as good as the brain for these perception problems, it can actually inform us on how the brain is operating. But we still were not sure if this is correct, if perception problems are depending on the nature of the problem itself. It doesn't matter where we apply them, or actually important with like whether it's a hardware, whether it's a mathematical model. Okay, I'm gonna skip these slides. Yeah, awesome. So up until 2012, we're pretty much not able to come up with, as neuroscience, we're not able to come up with very successful object recognition models. And so in 2012, when the AlexNet was introduced, the whole neuroscience community kind of gasped. So in 2012, the AlexNet was is not the first CNN, but was definitely one of the most famous ones. And it was able to come up with an error rate of like only 15%, I think, at the time. So it was kind of a pretty revolutionary. To just quickly go over what a CNN is, in case you didn't have this lecture in your cohort. It's basically let me annotate. Yeah, so yeah, a second. Yeah, so we have our fully connected neural net, just like we discussed. However, before we pass our input to our fully connected neural net, we pass it what we call convolutional layers. And what each convolutional layer does through passing a filter, they are able to extract features, okay? So for example, the first few convolutional layers will be able to extract kind of basic features like edges. Later on, they will be able to extract more complicated ones up until they extract really, really complex features, okay? So to give you an example, second, yeah. There's this filter, okay, we can see it here. It's called, so this matrix right here, it's called a strong edge detector. And basically, if we pass it, if we apply it on our original image right here, we're gonna get this result. And basically, we can see here, it's actually detecting the edges, okay? So the neuroscience community were like gasped because this is the first time we see a mathematical model that does so well. And the question was definitely then asked, does the data that this CNN is introducing matches the human visual pathway? Does it match how humans see and how humans detect objects? So, you know, answering this question will forever alter the neuroscience the computational neuroscience field. So I'm not going to explain this, but RSA is a way of, let's say, finding, coming up with a pattern of the response, okay? So yeah, we'll see in a second how we can do this. So the way we tested whether you know, an AlexNet or a CNN is performing similarly to the brain, we simply gave like a participant almost 100 images. We measured the fMRI response in a certain area in the brain. Then we passed the same 100 images to a neural network, and we also recorded the responses. We created what is called RSA, again, to kind of find the pattern of the response, and we got a match. So this is only almost like 10 years ago. So like, you know, very recent, but definitely revolutionized the field. It was very exciting to kind of read about it and see kind of the consequences of such a revolutionary like discovery on research. So we can see here basically the pattern of how humans when humans are detecting objects and how a neural net is detecting objects. It's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing, the similarity between the two. It's not perfect, but we never seen something like this. Obviously, this is not a coincidence. Not only that, not only the responses pattern was similar, what we actually can also find, we can actually trace the layers that the convolutional network is basically like has and will converge a response from to actually specific areas in the brain. So, you know, pretty amazing. So we can see right here, like almost the CNN of the brain. You can see here. Yeah. So awesome. We were able finally to find a model that is able to do image detection, object detection. So how did we use it? First of all, you can see here even the layers, right? So you can see the CNN layer and the corresponding kind of a group of cells in the brain that is representative, that's the same layer in the CNN. So we can almost see it in the brain. Didn't only work with object recognition, but also in the auditory cortex for facial recognition. So, and this is the auditory cortex. So this is the response of CNNs, and this is the layers in the brain that kind of does the same function and gather the same response. So again, a CNN in the brain for auditory for speech perception. Pretty amazing. Same for facial recognition. And not only that, but it also helped really like support certain theories in neuroscience. So this was again a really important like theory that was heavily debated. You know, whether there exists domain specificity in the brain, and actually neural nets were able to prove exactly that. Yeah, I'm not gonna get into the details because of the time, but if you're interested, like, please like email me or something like that. I'm more than happy to talk about it. Not only that, but also neural networks helped us find certain neurons in the brain that able to detect numbers. Okay, so those neurons are able to basically respond to like numbers from like almost 1 to 30. So pretty amazing in their specificity. So we found them by the help of neural networks. So we can see the neural net right here, and we even identified those number neurons in the neural net itself. So pretty cool. Yeah, and what else we can do? We can even what's the hard thing about the brain is that we can't go ahead and shut up like certain areas or certain layers, right, in a certain pathway, but we can definitely do that in neural networks. We can see the effects, we can stop we can turn off certain neurons, see what happens, and pretty endless kind of options to what we can manipulate it, and without actually needing to manipulate a brain, which is extremely hard. I'm gonna skip this part, but basically they're also they're also neural networks are able to tell us what regions in the brain or what their function is. So this is FFA, for example, is the region for recognizing faces. We asked a neural net to kind of generate for us kind of the best stimuli for this region, and it basically outputted faces. So yeah. It answered questions we were never been able to ask before, like why, right? Like why, for example, why functional specificity is a good design, and more. So yeah. So one question was, why does faces and objects in the brain have different systems to process them? Why do we have one area to process faces and one area to process objects? So obviously we didn't have any way to kind of answer that question before, but with neural nets, we could actually test the hypothesis whether the ideal system for facial recognition and for object recognition is different. It's gonna the features needed for face recognition, object recognition are different, and it's not ideal to combine them in one system. So what we did is we took a neural net, we trained it on object detection and on facial detection, okay, and facial recognition, and it reached a really high accuracy. And then we looked into the structure of the neural net, and what we found inside is that it kind of split into two, and it kind of had this one system for facial recognition and one system for object recognition. And this really proved to us that having those two systems is basically evolution tell us this is the optimal solution for solving this problem. And just like the quote with Mar, we had the same computational problem. We reached it the same way using our brain and using neural nets. So pretty amazing. I see something in the chat. Do we know in what ways the model is different? And the next steps to make it even closer to the brain. There is so much improvements that can be made. Not only that, but also something we do in order to make our brains better. In order to make our neural nets better and kind of as close to a brain region as possible is simply take inputs, take the brain outputs, and then train the neural net on that. And this is the result. We have almost 90% accuracy, so pretty amazing. We actually, in this paper, we are able to recreate areas in the brain, functionally, obviously. So who knows what are the limits of kind of this? Who knows if one day we're actually able to recreate the whole brain. But yeah, pretty amazing. And for the last part, what our deep neural networks are still not good at. So We would always like to say that, us as humans, we reach the current structure of our brain after millions and millions of years of evolution. Neural nets reach kind of reach their evolution after millions of trials over images, right? However, both us as humans and neural networks are extremely good at recognizing patterns, right? I think we all agree on that. Neural networks are better at recognizing patterns in certain instances, right? And that's why we use them to solve all those problems that I mentioned at the beginning. However, what they're still not able to perform is basically building models to understand the world. Okay, all of us here are pretty unique in that sense. We don't just classify inputs, right? But we actually kind of build understanding of the world around us based on these inputs. Okay, so yeah, we're still better. We're still better. Yeah. So like the best example of like what it means that we're able to come up with models of the world around us is like seeing this image, right? I think all of us just from looking at this image can understand like why Obama, like these people are laughing, and like then this person like has no clue what's happening, right? And some people would laugh at that. Yeah, a neural net won't be able to do it. So definitely like improve, there's stuff to improve on neural nets, but we're getting there.